I apologise that this video is a little bit late in coming out this week. I did a really good job whilst I was away in pre-filming and organising it then, but apparently it's too hard to do when I'm back home on a normal schedule. Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome to Upside Down Books. Today I'm going to be doing a book tag and I'm going to be doing the Intimidating Tbr Book Tag, which is pretty exciting and slightly scary. For anyone out there unfamiliar with the term, TBR stands for to be read, so it's all of the books that I have yet to read, and there are a lot of them. The questions for this tag have been really soul-searching as I've gone through my bookshelf and picked out all of the books that cause me the most anxiety on my TBR. In total there are 9 questions to this tag, so I'm just going to dive right in and we're going to start answering those questions and have a look at the books on my TBR that cause me the most stress. Question number 1. A book on your TBR pile that you just haven't finished. This took me a little while to work out what this question meant because I was like, well, I haven't finished any of the books on my TBR pile. That's why they're on my to be read pile. And then when I read a few other people's answers I realised it was more like one I've started and not finished. It was actually one of my goals like last year and this year to try and finish off those problematic books, but there's still probably one which I can include for this answer. And that book is the massive hunker of a book, Tarzan of the Apes, and this is the bind-up of the first 3 books in the series, and it kind of counts, it kind of doesn't count. I'd like to have this finished. I tend to have this one on my bedside table just there because I've read book 1 but I haven't read book 2 or 3 yet. So you can see where my bookmark is. I've still got all of that to read, but it's quite an old book with quite, you know, heavy writing in it, and it's very different to the original. This is the original. It's very different to Disney, that's for sure. So hopefully one day I'll finish this, but God knows when I'll sit down to actually finish reading the rest of this mammoth book. Question number 2. A book you just haven't had the time to read. My answer for that one is going to be A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. I'm pretty sure in every single one of these tags a Game of Thrones book appears on it because these books, I swear to God, I really wish I had read this by now. I actually thoroughly enjoyed book 1. I think it's on my all-time favourite list and everything. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, but they're just so long and with such small font that I could just never find the motivation to pick it up, and I'm always like, oh, I probably need like a good month to just sit down and plod slowly through this, and when do I ever feel like putting an entire month aside for one book? Never. Question number 3. A book you haven't read because it's a sequel. This took a little bit of thinking as well to try and think of a book that I've bought and then haven't read because it's a sequel, and I don't think I had too many, and then I realised there was only ever going to be one book that could answer this question, and that is Ink Death by Cornelia Funk. I feel really bad that I don't feel very motivated to pick this one up, but I read Ink Spell last year as part of my pushing forwards movement to try and finish off this series that I've been reading for like 10 years. And I got through Ink Spell and it took so long to read and it wasn't as blow your socks off as I was hoping it would be, so I kind of got up to Ink Death now and I'm kind of terrified of this book, to be honest. This series scares me, and maybe one day when I finish it I will be able to breathe again, but for now I'm just going to happily put this off and pretend it doesn't bother me. Question number 4. A book you haven't read because it's brand new. There are a serious number of books on my bookshelf that I have bought when they've come out and I was so excited for them and I just never got around to them because you're reading other things at that time. So the latest victim of this scenario is 1,000 Perfect Notes by C.G. Drews. However, I'm almost certain I'll be reading this in like the next couple of weeks. I'm going away again at the end of this week and I'm going to take this one with me, so hopefully this doesn't end up collecting dust on my bookshelf for a while, but we'll see because it's not a pattern I've ever really broken before. Question number 5. A book by an author you've previously read but didn't really like. So Matched by Ali Condi is my answer for this one, and I'm pretty sure I owned this series. I have the entire series because I bought it off someone really cheap before I owned the other book by her that I read. The other book by Ali Condi that I've read is Atlantia, and this was okay but sort of really mega meh. Like, kind of read it and enjoyed it, and then it didn't really have any substance to it, and it was just a bit, oh, that wasn't that great after all, even though it had some really good concepts to it. So because of this book, yeah, I've definitely been putting off the Match series because of that, and I've heard lots of very average reviews for it, so I'm just not sure I can bring myself to invest my time in it, and the more I read the blurb and hear reviews of it, I'm just like, I think I'm too old for this series now. I think I've hit that phase where some young adult books are just too young for me, and that's a really sad thing to have happened. Question number 6, a book on your TBR that you're just not in the mood to read. Okay, confession time, I'm not in the mood, haven't been, and I'm not sure I'm ever going to be to read Tower of Dawn. I feel like that's a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but I'm not a KO fan. I've heard amazing reviews about this book from people who weren't expecting great things from it, but if I'm being entirely honest, I've just stopped being excited about this series. And that feels like I'm just yelling blasphemy out because I love Sarah J Maas and I've always loved her series, but I just don't feel like reading it, and I find these books take me a while to get through because it's been so long and there's so much detail in all the books and I just can't remember them. It's the only series I have ever had issues on this level of remembering what happened previously, and I don't know why, I just can't seem to keep it all in, so I'm like, well, I don't really feel like reading it even though I need to read it because the next book's coming out, so this book is causing me a lot of stress, alright? Question number 7. A book that's on your TBR pile that you haven't read because it's enormous. I mean, like, there are definitely at least 10 books I could answer for this question. But the one I'm picking on this occasion is Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay. I really like the sound of this one. I think it sounds like it's right up my alley. The book is absolutely huge. It's got small font. It's really... It's got small font, it's really dense, and it's just shy of 800 pages, which honestly isn't even the biggest book there. Like, A Clash of Kings is longer, but I've just never had the balls to pick this one up. I've never heard of anyone else who's read it, or any of his other books, so I'm just gonna flounder over here for a little bit longer and just keep it on my bookshelf and pretend that one day I will have the time for it. But I probably won't. Question number 8. A book on your TBR that you bought because of its cover. I buy half of my books because of their cover, but one of the most recent purchases because of this was The State of Sorrow by Melinda Salisbury. I love this cover. It's really pretty, it's really striking in person, and it's one of those almost like, not fairy, but velvety, felty, sort of soft covers, and I hope you know what I'm talking about, or that would have just been really weird. And finally, question number 9, a book on your TBR pile that you find the most intimidating. This was not hard to pick at all. There is one book that has been on my TBR for years and years and years that I thought I would read, and then I watched the film and then I became even less motivated to read it, and that is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I have a horrible cheapy copy of it with a really gross cover. It's in the Wordsworth editions, where they're nice and floppy, but the font is at least size 4. Just over 800 pages in this one, and I'm convinced I'm going to hate it when I read it. I'm genuinely convinced that I will not enjoy a single page of it, which is pretty good motivation to not pick it up. So I don't know, maybe one day I'll have a brave moment where I'll go, right, let's try reading 50 pages and we'll see how we go, but I think this is probably the one book on my TBR that I will never read. Okay, that brings me to the end of the tag today. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was fun to make, if slightly stressful. Maybe one day I'll be able to say, hey, I've read all of those books now. What was I even worried about? But I think that's probably quite unlikely. If you haven't done this tag and you want to do it, I tag you, so definitely go do it and let me know if you do it because I want to see all of your answers. But other than that, that is all I have for you today, so I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!